Hello and welcome to A Pinch of Zest, our podcast series that looks to add a little something extra to how you better support your colleagues. My name is Josh Sweetman-Lemay and I'll be your host for our second episode where we will dive deeper into employee wellbeing in the workplace and how you can ensure you're supporting your colleagues throughout their journey with you. I'm delighted to be joined today by Annette Andrews, founder and director at Acaria Coaching Consulting. Annette will give us an expert's view of our topic and also how to help educate on the processes you should consider for supporting your staff. Annette, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your HR experience?
Yeah, of course, and thank you for having me today. So I'm a HR professional by trade. I can't believe I'm saying that it's 30 years plus now, working in HR. And I've worked cross-sector over the years and globally. So I started my career at Ford Motor Company, spent 18 years with them, which went so quickly, but was brilliant. Then I went to Lloyd's Banking Group. Don't laugh at my timing, 2008, just before the market crashed. Spent 6 years with them, again, great experience. And then I moved to the insurance sector, the specialist insurance sector, and ultimately became the Chief People Officer for Lloyd's of London, which I did for 5 years. Again, brilliant experience. But I had always wanted, at least for the last 10 years, to become a self-employed, set up my own business and be a bit freelance. So 4 years ago I was a brave girl and did that. And I now do a combination of coaching, consulting, podcasts, speaking events, and also I'm a non-exec director for a couple of companies. And I just love the combination.
Well, we're delighted to have you on. Before I ask Annette some questions, I just wanted to talk about employee wellbeing and why it's important to champion it in the workplace. So what is employee wellbeing? Well, I'm going to take this from my sheet. So according to Resources for Employers, employee wellbeing refers to the overall mental, physical, emotional and economic health of employees. It's influenced by various factors such as their relationship with co-workers, their decisions and the tools and resources they have access to. So at Zest, we've done some research around employee wellbeing and found, as the cost of living crisis continues, the likelihood that employees will experience difficulties that impact their mental health is on the rise. 59% of businesses say employee wellbeing has been in decline over the past 12 months, with 57% admitting it's at an all-time low. And it seems to be getting worse the larger the company becomes. It's little wonder then that 83% of employees are demanding more benefits to contribute to their wellbeing. However, businesses do seem to be taking note, recognising the shifting priorities of workers, with 82% saying they've introduced more wellbeing benefits in the last year. Finally, with wellbeing, it has become so intrinsic to the workplace that over 7 in 10 businesses, roughly around 71%, have introduced a head of wellbeing. So, some interesting stats here, Annette. To start with, and quite simply, why is it important to create a working environment where employees feel supported?
I think there's a couple of main reasons, and boy, has the world changed in the last few years. I mean, there's some good news. We're all going to be living longer. The challenge with that is that we're all going to be working longer. So that means that we're going to be in a working environment, whatever that may look like, for an extended period of time, with all the well-being challenges that we may experience along the way. That can impact our performance, our contribution, the way we interact with other people, etc. So really important for us to think about. I think there's something else going on, though, as well, which is, and I think this is a good thing to come out of the pandemic, we are all much more self-aware of our own and others' well-being and care about it more. But I really like the fact that you didn't just talk about mental and physical, you talked about the economic, social aspects as well. So actually, our employees, current and future, are thinking about it more. They're expecting more support, and they are valuing that support more. So I think it can create that stickiness to organisations as well, which we really need when we're recruiting and retaining people.
Well, naturally as well, obviously there's a cost of living crisis going on. They keep saying we're in and out of it, we're in it, we're out of it. But with costs going up, obviously people are naturally becoming more worried about, the cost of what they're having to pay for, let's say, example, a loaf of bread, but also it's very rare that wages sort of match up with the increase in costs that come. Essentially.
Absolutely. Mad, and you're right. We were talking about the train fares going up, weren't we, this morning? It's shocking. But when you've got childcare costs on that and maybe other caring costs, plus mortgage, it is a huge drain on people and quite scary for many.
It really is, isn't it? Do you think employers should have a holistic framework in place to support employees' physical and mental health?
Yes, and this is where I would weave in more than mental and physical. So I do think it's really important to have a framework. Why is it important? Because then you can structure things around it, be that your communications, your benefits, your policies, your practices, but you can also upskill people around it. I think the other thing as well is that if people know it's there and it's very visible on your website and you're talking about it internally and externally, people are more likely to talk about it, ask for support, and maybe tell you where there are gaps in that support as well, but really focus on all of the elements and not just mental and physical.
And I guess from your time in the industry and obviously through your coaching now, what do you think are the benefits for providing a good employee wellbeing proposition?
Well, I will tell you that well-being comes up in everything I do, be it as a NED, it's talked about in the workplace, obviously. In my coaching, it's often at the bottom of some concerns. But also when I'm doing leadership work, etc., it's absolutely there. So it's on people's minds all the time. In terms of the wider benefits for organisations, HR professionals will tell you it is a really challenging time to find the right talent. That you have to have something different around you to attract people. So having that well-being support will definitely attract people, especially if it's not just for them, but for their immediate family as well, in some way. Then, of course, it'll help you retain them because they may not have that at wherever else they're looking at or being charmed into considering a move to. That's important. But also you will, and you can measure this, then look at increased engagement, increased performance, increased contribution, reduced grievances. So the benefits can be measurable across the people function and contribution to the business.
And naturally, I guess that goes sort of hand in hand with employee benefits. Obviously, Zest,
Yep.
an employee benefits technology provider.
Yep.
What sort of benefits have you seen? I guess employee benefits sort of, if we're talking even just stuff like gym memberships, but like financial support as well. What sort of benefits have you seen in the industry that have become like really popular with employees in terms
And
of
game
support?
changers.
Yeah.
I'm going to make an observation to you. A lot of organisations, especially coming through the pandemic to the other side, just had the benefits they had. Now, that's not a criticism. It's just that, well, we've always provided these. My challenge to organisations is great you're providing these benefits, but are they the benefits that your employees are interested in and really needing right now? So it's really worth talking to your people, asking them what their needs are, talking to them about what you've got, because quite often people forget or just don't know about the benefits you're providing, and just make sure that the offering is fit for purpose. Is it fit for 5 generations at work, which is what we've got now? Then amend it as you need to. And that doesn't mean throwing loads of extra money at it. Quite often you may be spending something on, something on expensive that actually isn't really being used or needed. Could you use that in a different way? And then once you've got what is the right package, always use the technology to support it and talk and talk. And then just to say some brilliant things I've seen, there's the obvious ones around physical well-being like gym, etc. I tell you what I've seen that's really nice is some rewards. So employees are getting a reward, in whatever that may be, for looking after their physical health, which is great.
Brilliant.
And then you can connect, obviously that's connected to mental health as well. But again, we all assume that we know what mental health support people need. What workshops, etc., are you providing? And then financial wellbeing workshops, etc., as well. So there are a multitude of benefits out there, but let your employees tell you what they need.
It's very much that sort of tailored benefit offering, isn't it? Rather
Absolutely.
than one size fits all, which
Yeah.
very much isn't.
It doesn't work
it's gone
anymore.
now. It's not yeah, exactly.
It doesn't work. And we've got 5 generations. The needs of, I'm thinking about my sons are in their early 20s, so I work with people that are in their 70s. The needs can be very different.
You'll have one group looking at pensions, one group.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? But yeah, as we said, that one size fits all sort of clunky approach doesn't work anymore, does it?
Yeah. It's the easy, cheap route.
Yeah.
To be controversial. It's actually, if you really want it to work, tailor it.
And as you said, it doesn't have to cost thousands nowadays. Like if you get it right, you're on to an absolute winner.
Yeah. And let people choose. So I love where you got technology, whichever technology it is, where people can choose what meets their needs at that particular time and adapt it to those different points in time.
Yeah. how do you think employers can equip line managers? So this is another quite a big subject. How can employers equip line managers to provide the right guidance to support their teams? Obviously, to make sure that they're confident in supporting employees' well-being.
Yeah, and this is the group I really feel for. You know, for years, line managers and senior leaders have said to me, you know, I don't ask people about the tricky topics like mental health or etc. What's going on, because I'm actually not sure I'm equipped to deal with it. So they tend to not have the conversation rather than have the conversation. So I really think a priority area is to make your managers, leaders feel comfortable with having a discussion. We're not asking you to fix it. We're not asking you to be an expert in all these areas, but quite often it's having the conversation. And some of that is around how to do that, but other things are opening up yourself about some challenging topics that you or family may have experienced. Makes it more normal to open up and have a conversation, and then ensure that you signpost people to maybe the benefits site, the EAP program, which is always a very underutilised benefit, but just help them signpost things.
Do you think that's the biggest challenge almost in wellbeing at the moment? It's being able to, whether it's employee, I guess from employee side of thing, it's being able to have that initial conversation with an employer.
Yeah, it's creating the right environment, safe space, but where actually it's a positive to talk about things, and encourage people to say, you know, can I help you at the moment? You don't need to tell me everything that's going on, but if I can help you in any way, or why don't you go and talk to the EAP or HR or whatever. But I think opening up is part of the solution.
You touched on it a minute ago, sort of talent attraction and retention. How do you think wellbeing impacts that? Obviously, it's a huge subject. Arguably the key factors providing benefit scheme, but
Yeah.
are there any other factors you think that employee wellbeing really impacts retention and attraction?
So it's really interesting now. We've got a generation joining the workforce where mental health is just, we know there are problems in that, and that's our talent pipeline for the future. So that's quite scary. So they are seeking support. They're more willing to have a discussion about it, but they might not do that straight away. So they want to see stuff on your website, which is great. So if you can put it on your website, but also have, I call them stories of some of your employees and the things they're doing to help each other or help themselves, then you've got real life examples. Once somebody joins you, and by the way, it's not just about well-being, it'll be other aspects as well, then clearly as they're growing and developing in the organisation, how easy is it for them to see and tap into things? Again, stories, talk about things, be very visible, make it part of the DNA of the organisation. And then I really think employees want to give back. That might be community, social, help others through their own experience. You can engage your employees as part of the process, being that employee engagement groups, wellbeing, support, etc. I think engaging people helps them stay sticky to the organisation as well.
Which is obviously key, isn't it? At the end of the day, I guess, in my opinion, people will offer employee benefits, employee support, mainly for talent attraction and retention. That's the main thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think there's a little thing that you can do, which is if you offer some of your wellbeing benefits, not just to the individual, but to their immediate family, for example, EAP support for children under the age of 18, they are more likely to stay with you because when they come to think about leaving, the family will go, hang on a minute, we don't want to lose that benefit.
But it's also loyalty. I guess it's also loyalty to an employer as well. Whilst you don't want to lose that benefit, you also think, well, actually, I've been incredibly well supported by my HR, by my employer during this situation. Let's say your family situation that obviously you weren't expecting. That you might sit there and think, well, am I going to get that from another employer?
Yeah, people really need to know, and I can think this. I've seen a real change since we've come out of the pandemic, that their employer cares about them, and they're valued, and that that's been recognised through not just the wellbeing benefits, but by the discussions that people have with them. That's why that manager relationship, that team relationship, is so important.
We talk about care, and I know that you've previously written a blog for Zest on employee burnout.
Yeah.
What do you think are the key signs to look out for, and how would you perhaps go about supporting an employee that perhaps is struggling in the workplace with burnout, I guess?
Yeah. So I am seeing more and more people in my coaching experience of burnout. They're on the edge, and it's very difficult when you're in that cycle to recognise the signs in yourself. But you can recognise it in others. So you might find that people are more absent than they were previously, that their performance has changed, that relationships aren't great in the workplace, that they are wound up themselves, but also behaviours can change. It starts with that conversation again, and by that caring conversation. And this just doesn't have to be manager to employee. It can be peer to peer, saying, "Are you okay? I've noticed that you look like you're burning the midnight oil. Did you really mean to send all those emails at 3 a.m. in the morning? Bit concerned about you, and your accuracy is usually amazing, but it's really unusual for you to miss something." But just make it okay to have that discussions. But those can be some of the signs.
Is it not just discussions, as you mentioned a minute ago, sort of sending emails at 3 o'clock? Is there a sort of duty of care for, I guess, line managers, HR, to just spot those little things like 3 a.m. emails, like the little sort of accuracy signs?
Yeah, no. And I think that's part of the upskilling with managers to go, look, none of us expects somebody to be working 24/7, sending emails at various times of the night, etc. It's spotting it, it's having a conversation, it's helping people to keep work in perspective, which is just so important, but also to take breaks. And I'll be honest with you, but there's been a few times in my career when I've absolutely been working way too hard, but probably been near burnout. I can sort of step back and recognise it in myself. And it's been family or team members or a manager that's gone, "Annette, why don't you just take a break, take the day off, go recharge, and let's pick this up again on Monday." It's that caring, sharing piece that's made the difference.
And it makes such an impact as well. Just a couple of hours away from your desk, even a day, as you said, a day off.
It's so important. It's so important.
Rejuvenated.
Yeah, and recognising it in people. And I think the other thing is being very clear about what our expectations are of people. That no, you don't expect them to work every hour. That actually you want them to have a life, you want them to have that balance, you want them to, because actually time out is incredibly important for us to have that not just the rest, but let the creative side of us come in so that we're not on that hamster wheel. I talk a lot about stepping off the hamster wheel.
Well, we mentioned obviously how vital employee benefits are for, I guess, support with employee wellbeing, but it's not just the benefits themselves. Obviously, employee benefits platforms, especially like you have the capability to have so many supportive documents. Obviously, wellbeing, I guess you'll have wellbeing handbooks and stuff like that, and mental health support, but there's so many guides and pieces of content that you can also support your employees with that perhaps aren't pinpointed enough to employees.
Yeah, and there are a huge amount of resources out there. Again, I think the good news is there are a lot of resources. I remember, how long ago was it? But 10 years ago, I had an immediate family member who was struggling with depression and anxiety. I found it very difficult to find resources immediately available for them that they could access, whereas now there is a lot. But I think as an employer, you can help narrow those down. They don't all cost money either, that we've talked about, which is really important. I think there's something else that we need to recognise is going on. With the 5 generations at work now, each of those generations has a different view of how open they are to talking about well-being. And we just need to be aware of those generational differences and adapt our communications and our approaches for those as well.
It sort of leads me on to my next question. Obviously, you say 5 generations, and I wouldn't take a jumping guess, but naturally an older generation are probably less likely to open up, to be more open, whereas the younger generation now, mental health has become much more popular in terms of being able to talk about it, open up. Often a stigma around mental health. What practices would you recommend to try and support colleagues who perhaps are in need of support and aren't quite sure how to ask for it?
Yeah, and you're right. I find, how do we put this, more mature, the older generations, there's a real cultural difference in how well-being, mental health was spoken about, or not, let's be honest. But also culturally, work was work and life was life, and you kept the two very separate.
Very much. Some people actually consider it as a weakness.
Exactly. And it's not a topic
No.
we really want to raise or talk about. So then asking those people who typically might be in manager leader roles to suddenly change and go, well, it's okay to talk about this. They've got to work through that themselves as well to be able to do that. And then you're right, you've got individuals that are coming into the workplace. We know how much the pandemic, etc., affected them. They do need more support and guidance. Yes, some are willing to talk about it. Some are not, actually, because they've almost withdrawn to a degree. So again, it's about helping them find the resources, having the conversation, and opening up the topic. And quite often that's by a manager, leader, sharing their story.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to move on to a couple of questions that we've been sent in before we finish. What do you think is the best way to approach my employer or HR in regard to struggles with my own mental health?
Yeah. Do you know what? It can be really hard to do, that first discussion, but I would honestly advise you to go and speak to your manager or HR, ask for it to be in confidence. Yeah. Think through what you want to share and just say, I just want to share with you, I'm having a really difficult time at the moment. I'm fully committed to my job and the company, but this is going on in my life and I would appreciate any support. That's all you have to say. And then gradually they will give you various resources, etc. That can really help. The other thing I would come back to is the employee assistance program. I think it's the most underutilised,
100%.
brilliant benefit. I think 5% of employees use their EAP approximately. I've used an EAP in a former life, and I have to tell you, I was able to access counselling support, not just for myself, but my son at the time as well. Nobody at work needed to know about it. So if you're really not comfortable doing that in the work, speaking to somebody at work, access the EAP. I can reassure you it is confidential.
I'd completely agree that. Like you, I've used it through my employer before, and it's amazing how speaking to someone that you've never met before, you don't even know, you can actually open up to.
Yeah.
And as you said, it also gives you access to so many vital other avenues, including counselling, which it's absolutely fantastic. And I think it's, as you said, if it's 5% that use it, it's something that you should be banging the drum about as an employer constantly.
Absolutely. And if that can be quite often a good step one. So if you access the EAP, have the counselling support, have the discussion, that might help you then have the discussions you need at work because it'll help you prepare for it.
Absolutely. And one other we have is, what can be done to encourage employees to improve their own well-being?
Oh, this is so important. I think the good news now is it's way higher on our own agenda than it was. In many cases, though, we don't know what to do about that. So the more information available, the better. As I said to you, some reward systems are great. Encourage people to look after their physical health, etc., by building some rewards in. That can be done in various ways. Points equal prizes. Points equal more benefits, access to more benefits, are various things I've seen. Even competitions, little competitions within teams on steps, etc., can really help. The other thing I would also add to that is we still have the whole debate about flexible and hybrid working, don't we? But one of the benefits that I don't hear talked much about is if you give people flexibility in start-finish times, they are more likely to be able to access well-being, whatever that may be, but gym, or they might have more time to walk to the station. It can help that as well, and I think that's often forgotten about.
And finally, I guess obviously with all of your experience, what would you say are the best benefits that you've seen in and around the market that can help support employees?
Yeah. So absolutely having a framework that covers all of the areas that we've spoken around today. Talk about it. Have it, every town hall, every team meeting, make sure it's sprinkled in. Absolutely. And on the website, that's key. Having role models that are willing, particularly those that are in more senior roles, that are willing to open up and talk about their stories. That's really important. And then, and also the benefits that they've used within your organisation to support them. And then, as we talked before about having I don't want to call it a menu, but having that flexibility and benefits so that people can choose what works for them at the right time. And absolutely, I think the golden nugget is the EAP, to be honest with you. It could all start with that.
Annette, it's been lovely having you on. If you're interested in reading Annette's blog on employee burnout, then visit our website. Also, if you're interested in finding out how Zest can help support your wellbeing offering, visit www.zestbenefits.com to get in touch. Thank you very much for joining us on A Pinch of Zest. We'll see you next time.